but you can't seem to keep moisturized? Well, try our African Shea Butter Foot Lotion. We have many products to help you with all phases of your beauty and body needs. For a full list of all our products, please visit our website at www.aeasysilk.com or call us at 313-277-2319.
One of the problems is they forget who elected them. They forget who supported them, who encouraged people to vote for them. So we got to hold people accountable. They become these people.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back for Season 4 of the Teacher's Lounge. I'd like to start off by thanking our sponsors, Brother David Muhammad and Available Geeks. And I also like to thank Brother Minister Malik and the Get Up Stand Up segment for sharing this platform with us. We have a wonderful show for you tonight. We got our DFT Executive Vice President Terrence Martin. And before we go any further, for those who don't know, I'm Brother Donovan Gardner, building rep at Mason Academy, Executive Board Trustee. Leslie, you want to introduce yourself?
I certainly do. Hello, everybody. So wonderful to be back. My name is Mrs. Piper. I work at Flix, and I teach ELA, English Language Arts, to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I have the best students in the world. I do.
Well, I am William Weir. I am gleefully retired. I just retired in June from DPSCD. I still have a few more months of my executive board duties to finish out, but I am working on some things. I am still in education as far as education social justice groups, so I might be out the classroom, but I'm behind our students and our kids.
Yes.
So you haven't heard the last of me.
Right. So I hope everybody had a wonderful summer. It's wonderful to be back with you guys at home. Before we get started, I want to have a moment of silence for the young lady that was stabbed at Fitzgerald High School, Miss Danyana Gibson. I hope I pronounced that right, Miss Danyana Gibson. Let's have a moment of silence for her. All right, thank you. We need to stop the violence and increase the peace.
Yes.
All right, Brother Terrence Martin, thanks for being back with us. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's actually been too long.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm very excited to be back in the Teacher's Lounge.
I always thought it'd be very advantageous for us to kick off the show with the Executive Vice President of the DFT, because I know a lot of teachers and parents and viewers, you have questions that you might want to call in and ask. Join us. Be a part of the conversation. 313-868-0342 or 313-868-0351 or 313-868-4336. So we're going to start off, hit you with some hard ones first. The lead in the water crisis.
Yep.
You have children that go to DPS school. What was your first reaction when you heard about lead in the water?
I do, and you know, the first time we were presented with this issue in terms of having the lead in the water. I mean, obviously, I was concerned about the children who are exposed to this. I was also concerned about our staff members who are also exposed to this issue, and knowing that DPS has been battling these building conditions for a number of years. You know, none of this is new. And so I was extremely concerned and wanted to really get to the district higher ups to try to figure out exactly what was happening, what the issues were, and what the course of action was going to be to rectify this.
What were the numbers? I mean, what are numbers like? I've been a little bit out the loop, but what were the numbers like? Did they just find trace elements? Is it, from what you know, is it high numbers or? Yeah.
So what we found out is that last spring, the district, on its own, without a state mandate, without a federal government mandate, tested the water in a number of schools around the district. And test results came back late in the summer, early fall, on 24 of the schools. And of the 24 schools, 16 of the 24 came back with high levels of copper and lead. And so when those results came back, because there was the ratio was so close, the district decided, as a precautionary measure, to just shut drinking water down in all of the schools across the district, which certainly is a move that I applaud the district to do, because it says that we're not going to take chances with our children's future. We're not going to take chances with our students and our staff's health, and so we certainly applauded Dr. Vitti for doing that. But in that same vein, there was huge concern about what are we really facing here.
Right.
I'm no water expert. I'm no environmental specialist. And so I know we've all heard rumors about water and lead and in the wake of what happened in Flint, because we are so very close to Flint, the level of concern and the level of uncertainty truly rose at that particular time.
Because I know there was questions as to, okay, the drinking water shut off, but what happens when we wash our hands, or maybe the kitchen staff needs some water to fix the kids' lunch, or even the cleaning utensils. How safe is it to even deal with this water? So I understand where you're coming from. As I'm not an environmentalist or water specialist either, so those were questions and concerns. And if I remember reading my email properly, I think Dr. Vitti did have a question session. Didn't he have a session where he reached out to the community for some Q&A?
So he did, and prior to the district setting up those community meetings, it was really the union who got to him weeks prior and had some conversations and said to him, none of us are experts in this field. We need to get out in front of the public. We need to tell our staff, our students, and the community what we're facing, what the plan of action is to rectify this issue, how long it's going to take, and how much money is this going to cost. And what do we do for students and staff in the meantime? What the district did is that they put water coolers into every school. I think there's one for every 300 or 350 students in a school, and made those readily available. But it was really the union that pushed the district into making sure that they got out in front of the public and addressed these concerns.
Now, Mr. Martin, you said that you applauded Dr. Vitti's rapid response. Do you think if the union wasn't involved, he wouldn't have responded as rapidly?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but here's what I do know: that the DFT has really taken on this role of not just being advocates for education and advocates for students and teaching and learning in classrooms, but we also have been advocates for what's best for folks in the city of Detroit too. And so when you think about concerns about lead and concerns about elevated levels of copper in schools, these are things that affect the community at large. And so we wanted to make sure that the district took a proactive stance in making sure that information got to the community, because let's face it, for years and years there's been a level of distrust by this community to Detroit Public Schools, because quite frankly the school district has not serviced this community as best it could. We can go round and around about the reasons why: years and years of emergency management, divestment in public education. But it is what it is. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we provide a quality education to each and every child that goes across those steps. And so we wanted to make sure that we held the district's feet to the fire, that we held them accountable to making sure that the community was aware of the issues that we were facing in terms of the water.
And I applaud the DFT, the mighty DFT, for stepping up and making sure that these issues were taken care of and addressed. But there was something else the DFT did to help combat these issues. You guys got some money from the AFT, I believe.
We did, and we got about $25,000 from our national AFT. to purchase water for every single school in the district. And so what we did was we dropped off 5, 10, 15, 20 cases of water to every school in the district. There are about a handful of schools that we hadn't gotten to yet, but I think we purchased every case of water that Costco had. And we pretty much bought them out. And so we delivered over 1,100 cases of water on last week to schools across the district. That's awesome. What we wanted to say was, look, we may not have enough to give water to every child across this district, but we wanted to make sure that we did something and put forth some sort of imprint to say that the teachers and support staff across this district care about your children, and we want to make sure that we did something to make sure that they had clean and safe drinking water. Now, we didn't do this alone, and I would be remiss if I did not talk about the community partners that assisted us in this effort.
Okay.
So we just like any other organization, we have capacity issues as well. And so I made a phone call to UAW4. I contacted the laborers.
Shout out to UAW4.
Local 1191, who helped us out. Wall Side Windows, who provided trucks to help deliver the water from Costco to the parade company. So certainly shout out to the parade company, who once again stepped up and said, hey, we will lend you the space you need to figure out the logistics in terms of getting that water to students.
Now, you did say there were high levels, and VD did speak out, and I have to admit I haven't been keeping up as much as I wanted to, but I would like to at the moment, but I've been reading. Is there any mechanism in place? Are kids going to be tested? Are they going to have doctors or coming to the school? Is there some place the kids can go to get tested to see how much, how their lead levels are, or?
So these were some of that was one of the questions that came up in one of the community meetings that I attended over at Mumford High School, and so there were parents in the audience that wanted students tested as well, and so one of the responses to that from a healthcare professional that was there is that you can get children tested, but you may test positive today, but if you wait till tomorrow, you may be clean. You can test clean today, but if you're exposed between now and tomorrow, you may not be positive. So it's one of those situations where you got to catch it right away, and then there's no real clean-cut way to prove that if you test positive or a child tests positive, that it came from the school or came from the home environment or came from some other source. Again, legitimate concern that deserve the attention from the school district and from those professionals to answer for the public. And so I'm certainly glad that happened and that the district addressed that concern.
Okay, well, I just want to hop on the rumor mill. There were rumblings, whether it's via Facebook or certain colleagues that I hear that say, oh, well, Gardner, these water issues have been going on far back. It didn't just happen. This goes back to emergency management. And the only reason why the superintendent wants to do anything about it now is because one of our colleagues sued the district because she was lead poisoned. Now, I don't know the facts about that, but I heard that the DFT was there once again, and the President, Ivy Bailey, actually testified on behalf of this employee. I was just wondering, is this rumor true? Can you talk about that, or is it legalities that stop you from sharing? Did an employee actually sue the district because she was lead poisoned? Yeah,
so that certainly happened, and there is a case. I believe it's over now, where an employee was exposed to some high levels of lead. I don't know the particulars of the case, and so I can't speak on that. But what I will say is that when you talk about 15 to 20 years of some sort of emergency management in this city, then the issues of our physical plant begin and end in Lansing.
That's what I was thinking.
It begins and ends in Lansing. It has been a proven divestment in education by Lansing in Detroit. And so when you let buildings go for years and years and you don't address some of the basic needs of the physical plant, then you get water issues. Right. You get roofing issues. You get floor issues, heating and cooling issues. Right. So this is really, and I've said this in a number of interviews that I've done over the past couple of weeks, that this sets in the foot of Lansing, right at the steps of Lansing. And so it is imperative that at this particular time that we think about November 6th, that we think about making sure that we put a governor in office that is not going to divest in public education, but invest in public education and make sure that each and every child, regardless of zip code, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of race, that they make sure that each child gets what they need.
Is that why the AFT is backing Gretchen and Garland?
So Gretchen Whitmer and Garland Gilchrist are the endorsed candidates of the AFT, and the endorsed candidates of labor across the state. And so we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that the next governor of the state of Michigan is Gretchen Whitmer.
Yes. I need to get a sign from my lawn.
Yeah.
We can make that happen for you.
Well, you know what I'm hoping happens in all of this, it's like I know I was a Bernie person. But then, you know, it comes a time where you have to vote for what's going to be best for the people at large. I mean, there were so many people who just, and I hate using this word because it's getting on my nerves, but so-called millennials, you know, who were Bernie backers, and they just held up their nose, oh, I just can't vote for Hillary, and all of that was going on, and look what we got.
Right.
Sometimes you can't. It's the old saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. You know, now that really dates me, but look at me. I ain't no use to trying to hide it, right? but so I hope we can get people to understand that, you know, when it comes time to voting for her and Garland.
Yeah, now it's interesting since you brought up the election. Now, I've heard that Gretchen Whitmer is not necessarily a proponent of public education. I heard that she leans very far to the right when it comes to charter schools. So, in your opinion, is that true? Do you know anything about that? I mean, I know you probably can't answer for that, but you probably know more about it than I do.
Well, I've had several conversations with Gretchen over the years, and I can certainly say that she is a proponent of traditional public education. She's a proponent of working families. She's a proponent of unions, and she was just, you know, tonight at our local union meeting, talking about just that, talking about investing in public education, talking about the struggles of some of our folks who work our same jobs, who are making life decisions, who are underpaid and overworked, and you know, as an example, some of our paraprofessionals and secretaries and clerical staff who are not, you know, paid a fair wage, who oftentimes have to make tough decisions. You know, do I pay for my medications, or do I pay for a roof over my head? Right. And that's real. Right. And Gretchen's message tonight was making sure that we put policies in place in the state of Michigan where people who work a job from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, particularly in the education field, make a decent wage enough to afford the qualities of life, to afford to be able to feed their families and have a roof over their head and send their kids to college. I mean, so these are the things that I know she believes in, and certainly these are the things that we're going to hold her accountable for when she becomes the next governor of the state of Michigan.
Yes.
It's one thing to support someone for an office. It's another thing that when they get in that office, that we hold them accountable to the things that they said that they were going to do when they were on the campaign trail. Absolutely. So she will be no different.
That's right. I love
And therein lies the problem, and that's why unions. This is why I can see why Republicans try to minimize unions so much, because it doesn't matter who's in office if the people don't speak and demand things.
Right.
because if they don't hear from the public at large, or they just hear from a few people, then, you know, nothing gets done. I mean, look, this is 2018. How long have we been voting for people, you know? So how do things get this bad? Because everybody promises you something is supposed to get better, and you say, well, look at where we are.
Right.
Because
But
I
why would
think
Gretchen
sometime-
Whitmer be different, though? Why would Gretchen Whitmer be
Well,
different?
no, it wasn't so much that she would be different. The point I was making is that it doesn't matter who's in there if we don't step up and start demanding things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. I know. Anybody have any more to say about the candidates and elections other than we need everybody to get out and vote
Well,
in droves?
well, I will say this, if I could take some liberties.
Please, right in that camera.
So, you know, we do have a very, very important school board election that's coming up in the city of Detroit. And so back in 2016, when the legislation passed in the state of Michigan, where it essentially gave us our democratic right back to vote for have an elected school board. Although it's with some limited power, it's still an elected school board that has some power. For those who don't know, we are still financially controlled by a review commission that oversees the finances of the school district. Very similar to when the city was in emergency management as well. And so we have 2 seats that are available, 2 seats that are up actually, for Detroit School Board. And so voters should know that when you go to the polls on November 6th, you're not only voting for a new governor and House and Senate seats, but you're also, for the folks in Detroit, you're also voting for 2 school board seats.
Who stepped down? Who stepped up? Sorry, who stepped down?
So we have the incumbent who's up, who is Dr. Deborah Hunter Harville, who's running again. And then we also had Lamar Lemons, who decided not to run this time, so that leaves 2 seats that are open.
I see Brother Weir smiling. Why are you
I
smiling,
know.
Brother
No,
Weir?
no. Weird. You're retired?
No.
Did you want to throw your hat in there?
No.
I'd
It
vote
was
for
just
you.
those were just too interesting, and I'll reserve comment for right now. I would like to know who's running. I know
Do we know?
I gave things away. Huh? I know I'm not running. I'm not running from nothing.
I was
I'm-
hoping
He
to be
has-
like Bob.
He has executive board duties to finish.
No, we just need to know who they are. And
So-
I would like to know who they are.
So there are about 8 to 10 folks who are running for those seats. And if you can remember in 2016,
Oh, my
we had
God.
about 63
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who were running for school board. And that's a large number. But it was great to see that there was that much interest in making sure that the kids in the city of Detroit had a school board or had a school district that they can believe in and they can count on. So people were really interested and excited about that. But with the 2 seats up, there are some folks who have been on the school board before who are running. There are some new names on the political scene that are running as well. I mean, maybe at some point before November 6th that you all can do a show and allow some of those folks to come
absolutely.
on.
Would love to. Love it.
But here's what it's about for me. And I have a child in Detroit Public Schools. I'm a resident of the city of Detroit. This is about our democratic right and us exercising that, and making sure that public education is at the forefront of the conversation. You know, there used to be a time where, you know, whether you had a child in Detroit Public Schools or not, folks on your block, folks in your family, were talking about making sure that we had some quality folks on that board.
That's right.
Because we all believe in education. You know, we all want the best for our kids in education. But this is an opportunity for us all to exercise our right. So make sure that you don't skip over that last line. Make sure you scroll all the way down to the bottom or flip that ballot over and make sure that you vote for Detroit School Board.
Now, I do remember the last election for the school board, Fox 29. They vetted everyone. And wow, there were some people running that had criminal records that, no disrespect to going into foreclosure because that's not a crime, But if you're going to handle money or have a say in someone's money, I don't want someone whose house went into foreclosure having a say on how people should spend. So, in your opinion, do you think the school board members should have clean records?
Well, I don't know if I'll go that far. I want to make sure that the school board members are abiding by whatever rules are set in place that will allow you or disallow you to run. So I'm not going to get off into too much of that. But I will say that anytime that you run for a public office, you're really putting yourself out there. And I just commend people for having just the basic interest in children and the basic interest in wanting to be a public servant because this is a non-paid position. In many instances, this is a thankless job for some folks, and it's an extra duty in conjunction with what they already have going on in their lives. So I certainly commend these folks for wanting to serve children in the city of Detroit.
You know what? Just real quick, I don't think.
Hold on,
when
Colin.
it comes to politics, sometimes I don't think they have clean records. I just think some people hide things better than others. But go on. And take
I'll take this call. I'll just say to piggyback on what Leslie said. Just do your homework.
Yeah,
do your homework before you go to the polls. Caller, welcome to the Teachers Lounge.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What's the name of your guest and what is his position? And then I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Okay, this is Executive Vice President of the Detroit Federation of Teachers, Terrence Martin.
Okay. That's a good person for me to address this to. Do you think, I think this water scare that's now in the school system, I think somebody or some entity knew about this before, and this scare will create more fleeing of the system. Students will be continuing to Grosse Pointe and Warren and Oak Park and all of that kind of stuff. And Vice President, how are you going to stop that hemorrhaging?
Well, I never rule out the conspiracies, right? Because one of the things that
I'm not saying conspiracy. I mean, bad water will chase people out.
It will, and again, I never rule those things out. What I would suggest for people to do is really engage in this conversation and really read up and look into this, because it could be. I never want to rule those things out, but what I will say is this. I started off by saying that there's an issue with trust between the community and the school district, and really between the community and a lot of municipalities, whether it's the school district or whether it's the city. And so I certainly applaud citizens who are paying attention to this. I believe that Lansing has not done us any favors. When you talk about children with a Detroit address going to Grosse Pointe and Farmington and other school districts around the state, that's a real issue. Right. We may have 15 to 25,000 students with a Detroit address who leave this city each and every day to go to school outside of it. So Lansing has done us no favors in terms of lifting that cap and allowing that to happen. And so we have to be the protectors of our municipality, the protectors of our school district and of our city.
Yeah, I hear you. And in Los Angeles, they have a Los Angeles Unified School District. It incorporates the city and all those surrounding communities. And they're doing quite well with that type of model compared to this region here where we competing against each other like we're nations. And it's not faring well for all. I want to ask the Vice President this too. Were you Vice President when the stories came out that the state was using hundreds of millions of dollars to build a little arena for school money? Were you on board then? And if you were, why didn't you and the board holler and scream and say, don't do that?
Well, we did, but there's only so much that you can do. And so we needed folks like
No,
you
right?
with that strong voice and other community folks who many of them were present at board meetings when those
Couldn't the
things were
board
discussed.
sue
And many of those
the
folks
state?
who were in front of the school center building and in front of the Coleman A. Young Center, urging the mayor and urging council members, to really pause and reconsider this. So,
Now, you're
it's only so
independent
much that you
board,
can
though,
do.
right? I know the money's still controlled by Lansing, but as an independent entity, couldn't you have sued the state?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if we could have sued the state. But I can share with you that we had a number of lawsuits against the state of Michigan as it relates to how they were educating children and how they were divesting them in public education in the city. So we were involved in a number of lawsuits at that time.
We have another
I
caller.
hear you.
Caller, you're
I
going to
know
have to
they're
wrap
ready
it
to
up.
build $1 billion skyscraper to the heavens in a technological world where people are working from homes and office space is not as much part of this new paradigm that we're facing. But
Thank you so much
all
for
right,
your
thanks
call,
for the
caller.
show.
Thank you.
All
Great
right, thank you
question,
for
caller.
calling.
Great question.
Hello, caller. Welcome to the Teachers Lounge.
Good afternoon to all of you.
Good
Hello,
afternoon.
hello.
Good evening.
You know, I heard you mention that $25,000 number. Students going to school outside the straight. If it holds true what they said, that each student is worth $7,000, that's $175 million. And I can't help think that was the sole reason for breaking up the DPS school system, was to get that money. That's all I'm saying.
I can't disagree with you.
Ding, 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 ding,
that,
ding, ding, ding.
that when
Yeah.
the schools were taken over back in 1998, 1999, there was a influx of bond money that folks certainly wanted to get their hands on, and they created, created this chaos and a sense of urgency and this drama to hide behind the fact that folks really wanted to get their hands on that bond money. So.
But let me add this, man. If closing the DPS schools is what destroyed the neighborhoods, got all these vacant houses around here, if that's a fact, then our objective, I think, would be to buy up as many vacant homes as possible, because if we're ever to get ourselves back together, we're going to need them homes to house those young mothers to send them to school. And not only that, it would be an investment for us. We were at one time the largest black home owners in the United States, in Detroit. I think with some of that equity power, I'm trying to imagine all of us being under one roof with that type of equity power. What is it we could do? And thanks for taking my call.
Great question.
Thank you,
Yeah,
caller.
and
Thank you, caller.
just to sort of piggyback on what the last caller said, I think it's more nuanced than just buying up property. I think it's buying up property. I think it's creating jobs in the city. I also think it's really building a strong infrastructure in terms of education that's really going to turn the city around, particularly in the neighborhoods. You go downtown, you can go to New Center, and you can go to some other neighborhoods or areas in the city that you can look and say, oh, they're doing quite well. But when you go to the neighborhoods tell a different story. And so it has always been our objective to make sure that there are quality public schools in every neighborhood across this city. We don't want to just look at downtown and midtown and say these are our crown jewels of Detroit. We want crown jewels to be on the east side. We want crown jewels to be in southwest Detroit. We want quality programming and education all across this city. And so that's been the charge of the DFT and our community partners, is to make sure, regardless of what your zip code says that you have a quality place to go to send your students where they want to learn and where parents want to send them.
I know we put the pinch on Gilbert. I belong to a social justice group called 482 Forward, and I know we went down to the headquarters. Now, no one came down and spoke to us, but we were supposed to be getting a commitment from them to put more money into education, because you remember one of the things, I think it slipped out of Gilbert's mouth when he said he couldn't find the qualified people. They couldn't find qualified people when we were trying to get Amazon here. So since that came out of his mouth, some of the organizers at 482 Forward, well, they got in contact with Gilbert, and we went downtown to his building, and we gave them a letter, and somebody came and took it, and I have to find out exactly what the response was, but it was a positive response. You know, Detroit is not saddled with a lot of ignorant people. We have a lot of disenfranchised people. So if you say we didn't get Little Caesars, not Little Caesars, Amazon, because we don't have enough skilled workers, so okay, what's going to be some of the corporate responsibility to help us get
those
there?
skilled workers.
Absolutely.
So I just want to switch to competition for a moment. When we returned back to school in late August, many teachers were in an uproar because the calendar changed. The academic calendar changed. Why?
So the district came to us in the 19th hour, as they typically do, wanting to change the calendar because they did not put in the proper waivers last year to get some exceptions in terms of where they wanted to conduct testing. And so anytime that happens, the district circumvents our collective bargaining agreement, as they did with the calendar. We filed what is called a ULP. And when we filed that ULP, the unfair labor practice charge, we essentially won the unfair labor practice. And so even with that, we understood that the reason why the district wanted to change the calendar was to accommodate children who were taking tests, okay, and wanted to make sure that we had the proper time that we needed for those kids to prepare and for teachers to teach. And so we essentially said, okay, well, if you're going to change the calendar, and you got to give us something.
Right.
So in that change, teachers essentially were giving up a prep, right? Prep time.
That's right.
So we restructured the schedule so that the teachers did not have to give up their prep time and continue to get their prep, but also hold the district accountable in saying that if those preps aren't given or made up, then the district is held responsible. And so there's a monetary penalty if teachers are not given the proper prep time.
That's the word I wanted to hear. Show me the money. Monetary.
Take my
I want
prep.
I know. I want those monies.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But I think this sort of speaks to a larger point in that, you have to, when we're working with children and when we're servicing the public, and when you have a union and you have a school district that are both willing to work together on a better half on behalf of students each and every day, then we can come to agreements such as this. We can really make decisions that positively impact students, and that's essentially the reason why we're here. We as a union, we bargain your wages and your working conditions and your benefits on behalf of workers. But we also have a responsibility to make sure that we provide a quality teaching environment for students, and do the best that we can. And when that does not happen, we hold the school district accountable, we hold the school board accountable, and we show up and we show out as we've done in the past. But this is really a testament to a positive working relationship that we have with the current school board and the school district.
Okay. We're gonna get back to that because I want to ask you some questions about the relationship that we have.
All right.
Good evening, caller. Welcome to the Teachers Lounge.
Oh, yes. Please allow me a quick follow-up. When students leave the district and go to a suburban school, do the families take their address with them? Do they have to move out of the district into another city?
No.
That's my question.
No, sir. No,
Okay.
they don't. Most school districts have open enrollment. Yeah.
No, that sound right.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm curious about, Mr. Martin, is, you know, being in the union, I could imagine you can't please everybody. Everybody's upset. Can you just tell me what it's like? What your day is like? What is it like to be Terrence Martin, vice president, with everyone in your ear? Everyone wants what they want, and they can't get what they want. Then they want to complain and hate on you, and he ain't doing nothing, and, you know, get rid of them. You know, because I've heard all kinds of thumbs down on the union, but I'm all for the union. All right, Teachers Unite, DFT, DFT. So can you just, you know, talk a little bit about that, and what it's like for you?
Well, I think, you know, one of the, and I've been in the union office since 2003. I started off as a labor relations administrator prior to teaching in the classroom. And so, you know, I always say that my main objective, my role and responsibility every day is to make sure that that teacher, that I eliminate the variables that keep that teacher away from the focus of educating children, whether that's pay issues, whether that's issues with a supervisor or an administrator, whether those are physical issues where a person has to take time off of work, whether that's class size problems, etc. My responsibility is to eliminate those variables so that you can be the best that you can be for children every day. So I've heard it all, I've seen it all, but that's what keeps me up every day. You know, that keeps me going.
So I got to ask, so how do you handle when teachers approach you and say, listen, why did you do that? And you're only looking out for you, and what about us? How do you respond to a disgruntled teacher?
I listen.
Okay.
I listen. And I provide them with an opportunity to voice their concerns. I'm not there to solve every problem. I'm not there to give you every suggestion on how you should teach better. I'm really there to listen and allow teachers to guide me, oftentimes, on what the best solution is for them at that particular time. Often it's just an ear to listen. Right. Someone, you know, folks oftentimes want to vent, but really it's to listen. You know, because how often do teachers have an opportunity to really voice their concerns? You know, how often do you have an opportunity to really speak truth to power? And so that's what I try to provide. You know, I don't get, you know, too entangled with rumors or naysayers or anything like that. I'm here to do a job. That's a job that I do. I'm here to serve, and I'm here to make sure that I eliminate those variables that keep you from being the best teacher you can be.
Well, let me ask you, and I'm going to ask you two as well, since I didn't go to any of the professional developments, because I don't have to go anymore. But seriously, this new curriculum that they're rolling out, I just don't see a magic curriculum. And this brings me back to when we had the school improvement, the school improvement grants. When I was in a priority school, we got new curriculums, we received new curriculums, we received all of this stuff. And our scores went up, you know, modestly. It wasn't, to me, nothing to brag about. But as soon as we got to a certain point, they took all of the resources away, and then the school went back on the list. And it seems like we're repeating the same thing again, that we're getting this new curriculum. I just don't think there's magic curriculums out there. I think we're skipping over some points, like when we talked about community schools and trauma-informed education. I wish you all would have heard that interview with the principal who's going to be running LeBron James School. He is running a trauma-informed school with at-risk kids.
A public school, a traditional public school, might I add.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks,
Not the no. Yeah, and I think that's the point we're missing. And I'm telling you why this scares me so much is because and you and I have talked about this, that school closure law is still out there.
Still on the
And to
books.
me, just because the state messed it up the first time, telling people they can take Uber to, you know, places out of the state, they really didn't have that thought out well. But now they put it back in our hands, and they say, now you have an elected school board. Now you have this, but for right now, and like I said, I don't know this curriculum. You guys can tell me about it, but I kind of see the same thing happening. And then I can see them sometime later, the next test score saying, well, scores haven't gone up, and they'll implement. If you don't think they're coming up with some plan right now, I think they are.
Well, I'll start by saying this. We've had old, dilapidated textbooks for so long. It's kind of refreshing to get something new. But just like when you start off with anything new, it's like learning a new playbook. It's going to take some time. Hopefully it doesn't take as much time. As far as the other things they're bringing in, like the iReady testing, I don't know if you viewers want to call in and weigh in on this, but I like iReady. It reminds me of a reading program that I had to go out of my way to pay for my students to use. And this iReady test, you know, it's going to measure, you know, the growth of the children. First, they take the test. The test is going to measure where they're at. Then they're going to draw out a lesson plans, you know, or lessons on a computer based on where the kid is. The kid has to complete that lesson. They have to master that lesson before they can move on to the next lesson. And they take this test 3 times a year. So they're taking the first wave of testing now. They're going to take the next one, I believe, when they come back from Christmas vacation. They're going to take the last one in May, around May. So I only see growth. I only see it getting better and better. The only criticisms I would have is if I'm a resource teacher, so I push in. I think it may move a little too fast for my liking. If there's a pacing chart that goes along with it, I'm sure there is. It may move a little too fast for my liking. I would like for them to slow down and, you know, because I've been in a classroom where a teacher's like, okay, well, we're moving on to the next subject. And I would kind of like for it to slow down just a little bit, just so you can have at least 80% of the class master it before they move on. But the concepts of of what's in the textbook is better than what we have had in the past. So I don't know. It's pros and cons. It's better than what we have had. I'll just say that.
So what do you think overall? I mean,
Well,
you know, my
I'll wait
concerns.
I'll wait
Oh,
for
you're a
lessons.
gentleman.
Oh,
Okay. Well, see, I teach ELA. And I could tell you, my kids like it. And see, but I've embraced the curriculum. And I've encouraged the kids. I'm like, you know, whether you like it or not, we're stuck. We got to do it. So let's make the best out of it, you know? So, you know, there's times when the teacher has to read, and I'm really good with readers theater. So I put my all in it, and I told the kid, get down and shoot. And, you know, it was really quite dynamic, you know? And, yeah, of course, I asked them, okay, guys, what do you think? What do you think? After each lesson. And they're like, yeah, we like it. We like it. One of my students, a drama student, she's like, well, this book, what is it? Inside, Outside, Dark, I think, one of those books that they're reading. She wants to rewrite it and make it a play. And we're going to put it on at our school. So I'm like, yes, this is great. So I really think if teachers are having a problem with it, it's probably because of the way they're approaching it, you know, and they're just not buying in. And look, let's buy in.
well, my biggest problem is still the people who write the M-STEP test. They don't care what kind of curriculum. They don't know. Don't say that, because I write it for social studies, and I just finished. But the M-STEP is still written at grade level and slightly above. And our kids might be making progress. I think it's incremental progress. So I just don't see, whatever this curriculum is, any large steps, and I'll wrap it up, any large steps happening when it comes time to take the M-STEP
But see,
test.
wait, remember last year, and we were the worst in the district. It was all over the news. I read an article today that we've improved, right? I haven't heard that on the news at all. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't heard that on the news at all. Last year, it made top story. So embarrassed. But now we're improving. Not a peep. No one knows.
So one of the complaints that I've heard over the years is that there's been a lack of quality curriculum.
Yeah.
And so finally we have a curriculum, right? You know, there are some hiccups across the district, but you know, teachers are starting to get materials. There are a number of schools who don't have all the materials to the program. When reading programs or math programs are done with fidelity and are given all the supplies that they need, all the elements of the program, they're properly trained in professional development, they tend to work. They tend to work. One of the complaints that I've heard from teachers is that you have a new math program,
Right.
a new ELA program. It's just too much too soon.
Yeah.
Right.
Two brand new programs, and you have to institute them all in the same year
With fidelity.
with fidelity.
Good for them.
But programming aside, curriculum aside, I believe if you take care of the basics, it works. The magic that you speak of is in lowering class size. The magic is in making sure that you have a quality educator in front of every child. The magic is making sure that our buildings are in condition to receive children, not too hot, not too cold. The magic is in making sure that the school district embraces our folks and puts their arm around them. The magic is making sure that teachers are paid correctly.
That's right.
That's where the magic lies.
Yes.
You take care of the basics, you can bring in Eureka Math, you can bring in Open Court, you can bring in all these different programs, and they'll work with fidelity as long as you take care of the basics. Schooling hasn't changed since inception. Teacher, students, supplies, love, care, all those things still apply. We do that, test scores go up. We do that, we don't have thousands of children leaving the city, going to other places, they're staying here. We do that, then we make sure that we have a quality school district for every child.
All right, Brother Terrence Martin, I'm glad to have you on today. I just want to wrap up by saying, everybody, I did talk to someone in Human Resources. We are supposed to see those raises on September 18th.
Woo, can't wait.
And I believe people that are at top of the scale are going to get a $2,000 bonus.
So that you'll get a bonus in September at Christmas. You also get our long-awaited tip money back at the end of this month. And then a 4.12% for folks at the top of the salary schedule second semester.
All right. So there you have it. Thanks for tuning in to the Teachers Lounge, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Good to be back.
Yes.
Good to see everybody.
See you next week.
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit. The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.